Well, 15 years ago. It seems like a lifetime ago, right? There were many issues. I think that probably the most important one is that I was looking for a safe space to be myself as well as my partner at the time. We wanted to be in a safe space that was inclusive. So we chose Canada because at the time, this is 2003 we're talking about, they were about to legalize same-sex marriage. So for us, that was very attractive, and the fact that we could express ourselves and be ourselves freely was something that attracted us, and looking to Canada as an alternative to our native country, Mexico in this case. My first winter, I thought that it was never going to come to an end. I remember I was reading a book, and I chose The Shining, Stephen King's The Shining, to read in my first winter here. So just imagine, it was cold, dark, miserable. I was living in Scarborough, but the Scarborough side that is close to Pickering, so very secluded. And there I was reading The Shining, right? And I felt so identified with the main character going nuts over the weather, over the lack of freedom that they have, you know. So yeah, that's one thing that I encountered that was nothing that I have lived before. Then, well, adapting to the new culture, and then adapting to speaking English with everyone and being fluent in this new language that I was already fluent in. But what I never realized is that there are idioms and there are idiosyncrasies behind language. So I have to adapt to those things. Well, I went to culinary school.
Where did you go, sorry, George Brown or where?
George Brown, yes, George Brown. I went to George Brown in 2007. So when I started learning about the industry, I was a little, disillusioned, a little, I don't know, concerned about this not so safe place to work at. You know that there is a lot of sexual harassment in our industry, especially towards women. Back then, myself, I was a younger woman and a little bit more naive, if you want. But still, I didn't really want to experience that type of violence in my workplace. So I decided that if I was going to do this chef thing that I had in mind, it had to be in my own terms. So that's why I decided to create a company. Initially, I thought that I was going to do like healthy food and lifestyle and things like that. But at the same time, this other side of me, the Mexican in me is very strong, as you can see, right? And I really wanted to bring tacos to Toronto, and I wanted to bring good Mexican food to Toronto. And there I was developing my healthy food company on this other side, but the Mexican one was pulling away from that. So at the end, I had to make a decision and say, okay, am I going to do this or am I going to do this other thing? And I decided to do Mexican food, which is what we have been doing over the last 5 years. Well, I come from a family of bakers. My grandfather was a baker. Then he developed a technology to improve the way they used to make bread back then, So he had this old washer machine, and he adapted it to become a mixer. So it was easier for him to make more dough using this makeshift mixer, nothing like a KitchenAid or a Hobart that we have today. But then he started improving that technology and improving it to the point that it became a very profitable business for my grandfather, and then for my uncles, and then for my whole family. But we were always in the bread industry in Mexico. So I remember since I was probably 2 or 3 years old, going with my mother to Expo Pan in Mexico City. That's Expo bread, and everything had to do with bread, right? And I grew up, visiting bakers with my mom and selling them this new technology that my grandfather developed. I am finding more and more that the Canadian clientele is becoming more and more educated. They are going to different trips, not only to the resorts, not only to Playa del Carmen, but they are going as well to these other cities. They are trying to explore more. And I have clients that have lived in Oaxaca, clients that have lived in Guanajuato, San Miguel Allende, Guadalajara, and so on and so forth in cities, right? So they go there and they try the food and they are just blown away. And obviously when they call me and they hire me for, say, a wedding, they want something like that. They don't want burritos or fish tacos or things that, nothing wrong with those things, but they want something more sophisticated. It is challenging. I just spoke about the challenges, but the support that we have in Toronto for small businesses is there, and there is a lot of support. And for example, dealing with the government is very easy. It's very straightforward. Now, something that I am enjoying a lot since we started, like doing setting up the grounds for the business. And what I'm trying to say with this is asking for a license to the government and the permits and all those things. Something that was wonderful, it's the lack of corruption. And what I'm trying to say with this is that, well, in Mexico, you need to, bureaucracy and corruption. It's been really liberating. It is really amazing. Many times you are asked, what's your coming out story, right? But you don't come out once. It's not something definite that you do. You're coming out all the time. Whenever you know someone new, you have to come out to that person, because people assume that, you are going to be a married woman with kids or something like that. And I get that a lot. People is like, so what does your husband do? So I need to come out and say, no, I don't have a husband. Just let me explain to you what's the deal with me. But at the same time, it is really liberating. That is not an issue. Whenever I need to come out and need to explain to someone what the deal with me is not an issue. And that's amazing.